What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm Robert Durden, and this episode is going to be updating you guys on Israel and Palestine. In case you guys didn't notice, the Palestinians got bombed again this morning, or in the wee hours of the morning. And I just saw this last night, like right as I was about to go to bed. I didn't have time to do an episode on it, so I'm doing it today. Kudos to Good Politic Guy who got at it this morning, and Rational National as well. So this is the first bombing that has happened since Israeli Prime Minister Neutrality Bennett took office. He ousted Netanyahu a couple of days ago, and we covered that on the show. And he is arguably worse than Netanyahu. He's far, far righty and is vehemently anti-Arab, meaning anti-Palestinian. He was part of the Israeli Defense Force, I believe, and I think that's in this article I'm going to read to you here. He is the worst person in the world to be the Prime Minister of Israel. I dare say worse than Netanyahu. And he was absolutely terrible. So things are not going to change for the better for Palestinians, which is why we need to stay resolute and stay on top of these stories and keep pushing for Palestinian rights and BDS. So I'm going to read to you from Common Dreams. Jake Johnson does good work over there. This is his article. Just hours after far-right marchers chanted death to Arabs during a demonstration in the streets of Jerusalem, Israeli warplanes bombarded the occupied Gaza Strip early Wednesday morning in the first series of airstrikes launched by the new government of Prime Minister Neutrality Bennett, a former IDF officer who once boasted that he has, quote-unquote, killed a lot of Arabs. While initial reports indicated that no Palestinians were killed in the new bombing campaign, the air raid intensified fears of a fresh wave of violence by the Israeli government just weeks after a tenuous ceasefire agreement paused Israel's deadly 11-day assault on Gaza last month. That killed more than 240 people. The Israeli military characterized the latest airstrikes as retaliation for, quote-unquote, incendiary balloons released into Israel from the Gaza Strip. These balloons reportedly caused at least 10 fires in Israel. Quote, homemade fire balloons versus U.S. bombs, is there a better example of disproportionate use of force? Asked Ariel Gold, national co-director of the anti-war organization Code Pink. Abu Malek, whom the Associated Press identified as one of the young men launching the balloon, said the incendiary objects were released into Israel in response to a far-right government-sanctioned march through Jerusalem, where demonstrators rallied alongside several members of the Israel Knesset, chanted, "Death to Arabs." Israeli police fired rubber bullets at Palestinians who tried to disrupt the march, which reached the main entrance to the old city's Muslim quarter. Quote, "This is a genocidal chant, let's call it what it is," tweeted U.S. Rep. Jamal Bowman. "I represent many within the Jewish community who disavow and condemn this hateful language, so why does only a small portion of our Congress?" It makes me so mad. He wants credit for, like, calling it a genocide, but just say that. It's a genocide. He goes, it's genocidal language, and I don't know why people can't at least admit it's genocidal language. Oh, oy vey, the squad trying to get as many victories and virtue signal as much as they can with doing nothing. Speaking of the squad doing nothing, Representative Rashida Tlaib, the first Palestinian-American woman ever elected to the U.S. Congress, said that, quote, after racist and violent death to Arabs marches earlier today in Jerusalem, children in Gaza are being woken by bombs in the middle of the night. Israel's government doesn't value Palestinian lives, Tlaib added. It has managed a decades-long ethnic cleansing project funded by the U.S. The Israeli airstrikes came just over 48 hours after the country's parliament narrowly voted to replace former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with Bennett, a change that defenders of Palestinian rights did not applaud given the latter's record and policy stances, which include support for annexing the occupied West Bank in violation of international law. So, first thing to take away from this, guys, is, Neutrality Bennett's worse than Netanyahu, but this is his government basically just flexing their muscles and sending a message to the Palestinians that don't expect anything to change just because Netanyahu's not in here. We're just as bad, and remember it. The other thing I want you to take away from it is I'm getting sick and tired of people like Rashida Tlaib and Jamal Bowman virtue signaling on this shit. Ilhan Omar, same thing. I did a show earlier this week on her and Tony Blinken about how she was calling the U.S. imperialist complex a terrorist organization, apparently, comparing them to Hamas and the Taliban, and she was correct in saying so. The rhetoric is correct with these people. What drives me crazy is, like, what are you guys going to do about it? And that was my problem with Ilhan Omar. It's like, yeah, you're correct rhetorically, and the whole left came to your aid. Now, why don't you step up and do something about it? And my recommendation to Ilhan Omar is what I'm going to recommend to Bowman and Tlaib and all the rest of them as well. Shut your fucking mouths and actually do something about it. Or actually don't shut your mouths. Be right on the rhetoric, but also do what you're supposed to do in terms of actually getting stuff done. So what I said is, compare the U.S. military complex, the CIA, compare them to terrorists. That's correct. But then go to Joe Biden and say, listen, I won't vote for anything that you put up. No more bills will get my vote as long as you're in office if you do not stop sending money to Israel to continue doing genocide in Palestine. And I would go beyond that. No more Saudi Arabia money either, because they're doing the same thing in Yemen. Take a stand. If these people actually gave a shit, which blows my mind too, like, they don't give a shit, but, I mean, Rashida Tlaib's grandmother literally lives in the West Bank. So she could be bombed by our country, and she still doesn't have the spine to step up and actually do something about it. Draw a line in the sand. All three of you guys, and if anybody else cares enough about the Palestinians, go to Joe Biden and be like, listen, no more votes from us ever until you cut off money to Israel, cut off money to Saudi Arabia. You're on the wrong side of this. If you decide to try to demonize us with the media and you come after us, we're on the right side of it, and we're going to make you look like the war criminal that you are. We're going to expose you, and everybody agrees with us. Everybody sees those bodies getting pulled out of the rubble in Palestine of those children. They are going to agree with us. Those are our bombs dropping on those innocent civilians. So cut off the money, and we'll talk about getting our votes. Until then, you get nothing. And I would say go beyond that. But just for this alone, just for the Israel-Palestine issue, you want to get something done? Withhold your vote, you fucking cowards! Rhetorically, they're spot on most of the time. But I've never seen more ineffectual, spineless slugs than the Suicide Squad. Oh my God. So yeah, this is horrible, and it's not going to stop. The only way that we can affect what Neutrality Bennett is going to do in the future in Palestine is to say, listen, we're not giving you any more money, and we're not going to give you any more weapons. That's how you hit them hardest. Hit them in their wallet. But Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Jamal Bowman don't give a fuck about this stuff. They don't. They don't. If they did, they'd step up for it. And you'd think, Rashida Tlaib, Palestinian-American woman in Congress right now, you'd think that she had the nuts to go in there and tell Joe Biden to just fuck off on this. I'm right, and if you want to try to demonize me for it, go ahead and try. The American public agrees with me, and I'll shine the world's biggest spotlight on you for being a war criminal. No more money to Israel, no more money to Saudi Arabia, or you will never get our votes. If you guys gave a damn, that's what you would do. So, you guys know me. I'm all about, as best I can, giving you solutions along with, good news and bad news and funny stuff that's going on in politics. This is unfortunately really bad news, and Neutrality Bennett's going to be probably worse than Netanyahu. And unfortunately, because the squad is so spineless, Joe Biden has no incentive to actually do anything when it comes to Israel and Palestine, and he's going to keep giving them money. He just gave them $735 million worth of, basically, missiles that came from Boeing. That's our bombs dropping on, innocent civilians and civilian infrastructure. That's war crimes. Joe Biden is a war criminal. If we wanted to, we can point it out and we could actually get something done, but the squad is ineffectual, so Joe Biden will be ineffectual, so Neutrality Bennett's going to get away with whatever he wants to do, no matter how inhumane it is. That's just the state of things. And to me, I blame the squad a lot more than I do Joe Biden and Neutrality Bennett, because we know who those people were. This is what they were going to do. You're never going to have Joe Biden have an epiphany and decide to do the right thing on Israel, Palestine, or Saudi Arabia and Yemen on his own. It's incumbent upon the squad, who actually ran on stuff like this and who is rhetorically anti-imperialist, to go in there and push him. So when they don't do that, it's really their fault, because we knew what we were getting with Joe Biden. You know what you're getting with Trump. You know what you're getting with Neutrality Bennett. They're not going to change the way that they've always been and what we know that they are. It's up to us to push them to do the right thing, and when we don't, like the squad never does, it's their fault. Sorry. Nice tweets, though. Anyway, keep fighting the good fight out there. I'll keep you guys up to date.